crowd this morning. Good morning. Good morning. I'm Althea Brooks, and I'm Senior Director at Lifetime Learning in the Office of Engagement. And we partner with the Alumni Association in providing you this great lecture series on Saturday mornings. So if you'll find a seat, we've got some empty seats up front. We've got more in the back on the sides over here. There's plenty of seats, so find a seat. It's a beautiful, kind of summer, but almost fall morning, so we're glad that you're here. We've got a great panel that we've assembled to talk about autism, which is an important topic right now in the U.S., perhaps around the world, and we're really privileged to have them all here. So let's give them a nice welcome, more than the score welcome, before they even are introduced. Please, make them feel... They'll be introduced in just a few moments. Just a couple of announcements before we begin. Our next talk, which is October 7th, will be held at the Newcomb Hall Theater, which is a great space. It's pretty spacious if you've not been there. You can park at the central garage. There's a small price for parking there, or you can park here if you've got a lifetime membership, or also on the streets. But it's a fantastic location for our bicentennial talk. We'll be moving there on the 7th, so don't forget. We'll have signs here just in case you wander back, but we'll be meeting over at Alumni Theater at 10 a.m. for that talk. And that'll be Alan Taylor speaking about Mr. Jefferson and why he created the University of Virginia. And on that note, we'll be giving away a book today. It's The 100 Objects, which talks about the history of the University of Virginia using objects, important objects for the University of Virginia. So hopefully you filled out a card, and we'll be pulling that towards the end. We'll be ending promptly at 11 a.m. because there's a 12 o'clock game. Wonder what that noise is. Hopefully it will end before our speakers get up. Okay, so we've passed out those great orange feedback cards. Please take a moment and fill those out for us. We'd love to have your comments about today's talk. And I'm going to turn things over. We have, for those of you that have not met her, we have the new president and CEO of the Alumni Association, our partners who help us produce More Than the Score, Jennifer Andresco. She'll be introducing our speaker for the morning. Just a little bit about Jennifer, and I think she goes by Jen. She is former U.S. Navy pilot and mission commander and NATO officer. She's coming with us with a lot of power. And I believe she'll be excellent at the helm of the Alumni Association. Please help us welcome her to introduce our speakers for the morning. So glad that you're here.
Thanks, Althea. Good morning, everyone. It is an absolute pleasure and delight for me to welcome you to Alumni Hall this morning. Very selfishly, it's a fantastic partnership that we have with the Office of Lifetime Learning because we get to welcome you back here to Alumni Hall, and it's an opportunity for us to meet and talk with you and hear what is on your mind. So I'm absolutely delighted to be in this role. I hope I have an opportunity to meet a number of you after this morning's talk. I'll be out on the steps as you're moving on to the game. But I have the distinct pleasure this morning of introducing Catherine Bradshaw. And Catherine is a professor and the Associate Dean for Research and Faculty Development. Little quip about Catherine when I was doing my research on introducing her. Her CV was 51 pages long. She is an extraordinarily accomplished professor. She graduated from the University of Richmond in 1997. She was magna cum laude in Phi Beta Kappa there. She went on and to earn her doctorate in developmental psychology from Cornell University. Prior to that, her Master's of Education in Counseling from the University of Georgia. Prior to joining us here at the Curry School, she was an associate professor and the associate chair of the Department of Medical Health at the Johns Hopkins Bloomberg School of Public Health. And her primary research has been focused on the development of aggressive behavior and school-based prevention. I'm not going to steal Catherine's thunder. She's going to introduce our prestigious panel this afternoon. But Catherine, we are absolutely delighted to have you this morning. Thank you so much for spending your time with us. I know this is an important topic, and we look forward to hearing from the panelists. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, thank you so much for joining us here today. I'm always so impressed by our audience and our alumni, as well as our faculty. So I have the great honor of just setting the stage a little bit for what I hope will be a conversation around autism and where UVA intends to go in this perspective. As many of us do, I also have a personal connection to this. I'm the godmother of a 6-year-old who lives in Richmond who has autism, and I think that also grounds me in terms of my interest in this issue. He was born about a month before my own daughter, so I have a very personal connection to this issue as well as an intellectual and research connection. Within the Curry School, I have the great privilege of helping to coordinate some of our research and collaborative efforts, both within the school as well as across grounds. And our leadership, Dean Pianta, who is here with us today, is very supportive of this effort and has really helped us anchor our mission and vision as we think about the next stage of work that we do around autism. So in terms of understanding autism, I think we have so many experts here in the audience. I don't want to belabor a lot of the details and statistics, but I do want to make sure that we have a clear understanding of the significance of this disorder, as well as the challenges and the opportunities that are afforded when we think about working with children on the spectrum. Children with the autism spectrum disorder carry a range of challenging behaviors that show up in the classroom, present challenges for family members and for peers. But they also have what Ron Susskind talks about as affinities or strengths and opportunities and passions that really can be leveraged. And we in the Curry School and here at UVA do take a strength-based approach of thinking about autism and really wanting to capitalize on those strengths as well as thinking about some of the challenges and how we can support them. And what's clear is that there are growing rates of autism across the country. And we can debate the statistics and try to understand why this is the case. In many cases, understanding the prevalence of autism has helped us become better at detecting it and screening early on and communicating about it. So that awareness has helped us. But as we were trying to unpack this statistic of 1 out of 68, what does that really look like? But since we're all headed up the street today, we can have a sense of thinking about what that looks like. If you were to envision Scott Stadium with the over 61,000 people that hopefully will be packing the game today, think about that proportion of individuals that might be there with autism. And we can just visualize this. If we were to use that statistic of 1 out of 68, think about this group of roughly 904 sitting right on the 50-yard line. It might give you a sense of visualizing the impact and the scope of this disorder. But then also think about the families that are directly affected and actively involved in supporting those children and adults. And then think about the broader family of grandparents, cousins, and then the classmates and peers, and us all as a community and how we are affected and how we can be part of a solution and part of a change process. So with that issue of supply coming up, we also have an issue of demand. We don't have as many resources that are available to help our families, and we don't have as much early screening and early identification as we really need. And families are seeking questions, having answers that we don't actually have just yet. So we're really working hard not only to develop a research base around this issue, but also to provide the kind of services and support. So with those growing demands, we have a big gap between where we're actually providing services. In fact, data within the state of Virginia indicates only about 50% of people with autism are getting the services that they actually need. And sadly, this is an area Virginia doesn't lead the pack when we think about actually helping out. When you look at the national numbers, we rank 39th across states across the United States that are actually providing quality services and meeting needs for individuals with autism. So we have a lot of work to do, not only broadly within the state, but even within the state. Where do we actually see children located and families located that are needing these services? So these are some data actually from our colleagues over in nursing. Pamela de Guzman recently published this paper where she mapped children that are being screened across the state in 5 different child development centers for autism. And so these are children roughly age 5 and less. And you can see each of those little blue dots is a child that has been screened and diagnosed with autism. And we can look at that mapping on top of our density within the state. So where are we more populated? And this is really where issues around telemedicine are so important, and we think about the reach that our colleagues, we'll hear a little bit from David about the opportunity that we have being geographically located right in the middle of the state here at UVA. We can help reach and connect up some of those different centers and provide much more visibility for the work that needs to go on in coordination across the state. So this is really very striking information that's helpful for us to understand the local impact and the local need. And what are some of those local needs? We continue to hear the need for early diagnosis. Those data were about age 5. We really need to be thinking about this much earlier. In fact, we have good techniques that can help us diagnose and identify children even as early as age 2. And so we need more opportunities to provide training and connectivity across the state to be able to provide that early identification and diagnosis. Because we know the delayed identification leads to delayed delivery of services, and that also translates into poor outcomes for kids with autism. So these needs are very evident. They show up in childhood. They show up across the life course. In fact, young adults with autism are challenged to find opportunities for workforce development. So we need to be taking a life course perspective and thinking about children, families, and young adults that we can be able to provide a full range of support services for. As a university, we have partnerships that we need to be developing, not only across grounds in these different areas, but also within our community. And only through those partnerships are we going to be able to discover new solutions to many of these questions, identify resources, and collaborate to provide additional top quality training to professionals. And UVA is very well positioned to be able to do this. We already have a multidisciplinary team, having a School of Medicine here and very active in this space. We're thrilled to have Yadeep Kapoor, who is here from the Brain Institute. If you want to kind of wave a little bit, we have been working very closely with the Brain Institute in this space. We actually organized a conference with them back in April that many of you attended, where we talked about some of the research innovations that are going on here at UVA and ways that we can work collaboratively to be able to talk more about brain science and the connection of the brain and body to be able to deliver better services and inform that. We also have collaborators more broadly within the School of Medicine, like Dan Cox, who was presenting at that event and talked about driving simulators and young adults with autism and the kind of supports that we need to be able to provide. We also have really deep connections with developmental pediatrics that are represented here today. We have Rich Stevenson, who directs that group, as well as Beth Ellen Davis, who I know is in the audience and very active in the clinical supports. We're also working on additional hires that would connect up our Sheila Johnson Center within the Curry School and the work that's going on in developmental pediatrics. We have a number of other faculty that are deeply involved in this work, also within the college, like the Department of Psychology. Vikram Jaswal, who's a faculty member who's also personally affected around this issue and very much a personal advocate, as well as a professional researcher in this space. He's actually teaching a course today for undergrads at the university and has a course assignment where the students in his class go out and work with a community organization around the topic of autism. So Vikram wasn't able to join us today, but I think this just illustrates some of the brief examples of collaboration and intrigue that we have around this issue, as well as expertise that's growing and increasing all the time. And this is really where UVA is starting to consolidate a plan around our work in autism. We've been thinking about what kind of research do we need that's on grounds, that's in collaboration with our partners in the community. What kind of support services do we need to be providing, both locally as well as the leadership we can provide for service delivery across the Commonwealth and the nation. And what kind of training can we provide, not only for our students here on grounds or that are studying with us across the state, but how can we leverage telemedicine and other kind of technologies to provide training to other professionals within the field that are across the state, really trying to connect up that map that I showed you through training and other kinds of approaches. You'll hear a little bit more about that infrastructure through Micah Mazurek, who just joined us this fall and has been helping us develop a vision for that. And this is going to require deep partnerships. And we are thrilled to have some local partners and statewide partners and national partners that are eager to collaborate with us on this. Ethan Long was one of the first people I met here in Charlottesville, and I know Ethan is out here. He represents VIA. If you can stand up and wave to us, Ethan, that's great. We are so excited to have a deepening and growing partnership with VIA, who's had a long time presence in this space and is really very open and helping to push us along a little bit, and we welcome those opportunities for collaboration as well as that challenge to step into that space. The Faison Center, located in Richmond, has also been over, and vice versa. We have been collaborating with them and thinking about the statewide reach that we can really connect up, as well as some regional and national and global partners through Autism Speaks. They were present when we had our April event here and continue to express strong interest in collaboration with UVA around this. And only through this are we going to expand our reach across the Commonwealth, being able to connect up with some of our other university partners and hospitals and practitioners and families to develop and pilot and innovate around this space, as well as develop models of high-quality service. And expand that reach on a global level, putting UVA as a leader in the space of working with autism, particularly around family-focused support services. So this is a pretty ambitious scope of work that we're setting out here, and it's going to require a lot of partners. And so for that effort, we've convened a panel of experts. This is really just a small assortment of our faculty that are involved in helping us think through this. But we invited 3 of our experts here today to talk a little bit about where they see UVA going in this space and how we can partner together to try to get some early wins and some successes in this area, as well as develop a longer-term plan for working together around issues of autism within the state and nationally. So I've asked Micah Mazurek, who's actually one of our hires in this area. We got some support from the Provost's office to make 4 hires, which are referred to as cluster hires, so that way they can all work together and collaborate with us. And so we are thrilled that Yusha is another, Yusha Hua, who joined us this year also, and we have 2 others that are planned that are going to be located in the School of Medicine over this next year. So I think this also signals our broader interest. But I wanted to introduce Micah to talk a little bit about her recent transition to UVA and where she sees us moving in this next stage.
Thanks so much for the introduction, Catherine. I'm Micah Mazurek. I'm a clinical psychologist and just moved here to UVA from the University of Missouri, where I worked at the Thompson Center for Autism and Neurodevelopmental Disorders for the past 12 years, doing a combination of research, clinical service, and training in a very integrated and interdisciplinary way at that center. And I think that's what can really help us drive the field forward here at UVA, because autism is such a complex condition and so many people have so much expertise to bring to the table. It's really a team sport. So I think that's very exciting to think about the expertise that we have on grounds here at UVA in the community from family members and people with autism themselves, and kind of bringing us all together to the table to answer these really big questions about what's going to improve outcomes for people with autism and their families. My research has focused pretty broadly on improving outcomes for people with autism and their families through developing new assessment tools that help us do a better job of tracking improvements as a result of treatment, developing new ways to identify targets for treatment so that we make sure that our interventions really are individualized, because we know that one size doesn't fit all for all people with autism. So we want to do a better job of developing more effective, targeted, and accurate assessments and interventions. And then another area of my research and kind of clinical interests are improving access to best practice, evidence-based care for families across the state, the country, and the globe, especially underserved populations. We know that not everybody can come to autism centers to receive services, and they need those services in their local communities. So some of my work has included leveraging technologies to be able to deliver interventions and training in rural, remote areas to improve access to care for those families.
Great. Next up is Bill Therian, who is a professor of special education in the Curry School and joined UVA a couple of years ago and has really been helping to think more about our partnerships and collaboration externally.
Yeah. Thanks so much for coming. This is a topic that we're all very passionate about, and we're excited that you're passionate about it as well. So Catherine kind of talked about kind of the enormity of the problem. and where we currently are. And I am privileged to represent a group of thousands of individuals that are located all throughout our state who are working with individuals with autism every day, 180 days a year, 6 hours at a time. And those are teachers. Teachers are on your front line. Do we have any teachers in the audience at all? Thank you very much. So when we think about this type of an effort and why we say community-based is because the solutions aren't at UVA or cannot be implemented at UVA. They need to be implemented in the community with our community partners. And a primary partner for that is our teachers. And that is where I'm privileged to work with. And so our goal with teachers is to provide them with the tools they need and the programs they need in order to make a difference. And when we do that, we see phenomenal changes. Let me give you one example. There's some conventional wisdom in special education in general that once kids get into high school that you should no longer focus on teaching individuals how to read. And that's kind of a conventional wisdom. We stopped teaching reading. And we found through some very intensive support with reading programs that we can improve reading levels up to 4th, 5th, 6th grade instructional level relatively. And then when we embed that with intense instruction in the vocabulary that they might be interested in, a vocation, personal interests, that they can read and comprehend at the same level as the rest of us. So when we think about this effort, my goal for it is to always say, what about the teachers? How can we utilize the teachers and give the teachers what they want? So thank you.
And next is David Cattell-Gordon from the School of Medicine, who's very involved in work around telemedicine and also has a personal connection to this issue.
So good morning, everybody. I'm delighted to be here. And I think, the slides of Scott Stadium to show that engagement, that's why this issue is more than the score, isn't it? There's the old expression we all know, it takes a village to raise a child. It takes a child with autism to raise the consciousness of an academical village, and our consciousness is raised. My name is David Cattell-Gordon. I am the director of telemedicine at UVA, but I wear a lot of hats and tams and plumage when it comes to this issue of autism. I am on the faculty of public health sciences in the School of Medicine. I am the director of rural outreach for the university health system. I am also a senior advisor to the Healthy Appalachia Institute, which is a public health institute at the College of Wise and is really a point of important connection for us as we reach into rural communities. I'm also a kid from the coal fields, and so that's of special importance to me. I wear the hat as one of the founders and a board member of the Virginia Institute of Autism, one of the great experiences of my life to go from isolation to community with VIA, and now to have the university as a part of that is amazing. The four of us stood up here this morning really getting chills talking to each other about what this means. Many of you may know that the root word for autism is Greek. Auto means aloneness. And somewhere at the core of autism is isolation. And rather than focus on the pathology of this isolation, our efforts as a university, as Catherine so eloquently said, is really about beginning from a place of strengths to understand how we break down that isolation. I'll give you a brief example, and that has to do with telemedicine, the ability to see a family and form a relationship at a distance. Can you imagine, as a single mom, loading up your 8-year-old child with autism who is behaviorally challenged in your car, which has mechanical problems, and trying to drive for 5 hours to get here, to sit down with one of our fabulous developmental pediatricians to do some medication management, and then go home? How hard that is when you have limited resources, and so you don't come. And I think that the data we saw is evident. We need to expand our reach. Imagine now that kid can go 20 minutes from home and go to a safe space in a clinic, have support there, people they know from the community and reach incredible teachers here, incredible faculty, incredible developmental pediatricians, to reach teachers from the Virginia Institute of Autism who are curried, trained, who can get on the screen. I had the privilege 2 weeks ago to be in an encounter with a great developmental pediatrician, now retired here, Marion Halperin, who was connected and taking care of a family. And that 8-year-old child at the end of that session, who was so engaged by learning visually on a monitor, went up at the end of the session and hugged the monitor. That's connection, that's breaking isolation, and that's what we are building here at the university.
Yeah, and I think just following up on that, when I pulled up this map, looking at some of this research, I was just so impressed that we have not only expertise here at UVA that are interested in trying to map and understand this issue, but also thinking very much about what can we do. And so this is very real data when you take a look at it. And while we talk about UVA being somewhat geographically challenged, being in the middle of the state, we're actually geographically located in an optimal space to be able to increase that connectivity. So I'd love to talk to you a little bit more and hear you talk a little bit more about your vision for leveraging the telemedicine model. And with other developments that are going on here at UVA, obviously we have UVA at Wise, which is located way down here. You don't see a whole lot of dots down there. And that's likely because kids aren't really being detected and that they aren't having those kinds of resources in the screening. And as we also visualize up on that north side, if you're not familiar with looking at these kind of graphs, as we get darker into the darker green, that shows more population density, meaning more people are living there. And so you see your more urban areas have a darker green. And that tends to be where there are more people, but there are also more resources, and that's probably why you see more of those dots. But the lack of dots in the other spaces, it could be they're getting services at other places, but there are probably a lot of unmet needs and the ability for us to reach through telemedicine and coordinate up. And UVA is developing a partnership through the School of Medicine with Inova in Northern Virginia, and that provides another tentacle as we think about our reach, given that we are geographically in the middle of the state, as Jefferson intended us to be, to connect up the state. Talk about how you see telemedicine reaching into those other areas and serving that connectivity around autism.
Absolutely. I left out one of my hats. And I don't want to leave out this hat because it's a top hat with some peacock feathers in it. And that is that I am the parent of two incredible young men, one of them sitting right there, my son Joseph, and my other son, see that Grateful Dead T-shirt? That's fabulous. My other son, Daniel, has autism. He's 26 years old. He is 7 feet tall. He is the tallest person with autism in the world. Okay? We all come by our credits in different ways. And he's an extraordinary young man, and he's a gentle giant because he wasn't isolated, because he had access to the resources he needed to connect to the world, so that the last Saturday we could go to the Alamo, we could get some pizza, and do the sing-along to, what's a movie with John Travolta? And
Grease.
Grease.
Yeah.
Oh, he loves those songs, and he was booming it. I should know that. But this is to the point. We weren't isolated, but those kids in Southwest Virginia, the reason that there aren't blue dots there is because they don't have access to the resources they need. Their teachers don't have access to the training they need. They don't have regular communication with other professionals to support them in their work. And so telemedicine exists as a resource to reach them all. Who in this room has one of these? Can we just see, it just is a powerful thing. Everybody has one of these. We are in the middle of a digital revolution. Google estimates that by 2020, 90% of all packets on the internet are going to be video packets. We're going to look at each other when we talk to each other. We're going to be able to go into the schools, as Vi is currently doing in a partnership with UVA with a large HRSA grant, multi-million-dollar grant, to reach in, to train teachers, to see the students, to run support groups for the families, because we can see each other and talk to each other. And then we can extend that service through our partners throughout the state in models to create access to training. We can put patients onto clinical studies. We can extend what we do in terms of healthcare. And so we're going to be able to leverage the Karen S. Ruban Center for Telehealth, one of the top 5 centers for telehealth in academic settings in the United States. We have that resource here to be able to change Virginia from 39th to 1st. Great.
Well, thank you. I would love to dip back a little bit to Bill and the work that he's been doing around partnerships, both in collaboration with VIA and developing some innovative models for training our students and working collaboratively, but also partnering with our colleagues in the School of Medicine around developmental pediatrics. Can you talk a little bit about that and some of the pilot work you've been
Sure. So,
leading?
yeah, just kind of talk a little bit off of what David's indicated is, so one of our approaches and one of our main concerns with this is to put the person in the middle, right? So oftentimes with any type of services that you provide for someone with autism, first of all, so he mentioned this family in Southwest Virginia needing to drive 6 hours up to University of Virginia, which is unlikely. But even if they can't get up here, what do you think are the chances they're going to have to go to one spot and meet with a group of cadre of people to help them at one particular time? You know, they're going to be lucky if they can find a parking spot. So what we want to do is we want to put the family and the person in the center and meet their needs as a group of individuals. And that's why we're here. That's why David and I are working together. So he has these resources related to telemedicine. He has the expertise related to developmental pediatrics. I bring the teachers, and Curry brings a lot of other expertise with that. And so we want to work together. We want to develop solutions that puts the family first and integrates them so that they feel like a whole individual instead of being pulled to speech pathology and clinical psychology and special education and audiology and so on and so forth. And then on top of that, we want to train in that way. We want to train the next group of experts and psychologists and pediatricians and special education teachers and regular education teachers and a whole host of them to work together to meet individuals' needs and for individuals with autism and all kids. And so a critical part of that for us is being in the community, right? So our work is in the community, and one of our major partners is the Virginia Institute on Autism. And so one of my main goals when I came here, when it came to training, and we train both regular education and special education teachers, was making sure that all teachers got some experience with autism. And so we have VIA employees that are coming into the Sheila Johnson Clinic right in Bavaro. So even our regular education teachers who aren't special education teachers aren't going to be working with kids with autism every second of the day. They're getting that background and they're getting that experience. Because it really, we need a comprehensive approach in order to solve these problems. And then we benefit from their expertise in autism. And so our teachers and our other professionals are leaving Curry and are leaving UVA with the skills in order to make a difference. And they're going all over the state and all over the world. So my research, my passion, my concern for my students is all centered on how do we improve the lives of these individuals. And they have so much potential, so much untapped potential that we need to work on. We need to work hard.
Great. And Micah, you're still relatively new to UVA, just joining us over the summer, but you have a lot of experience developing centers and collaboration and training programs at the University of Missouri. Can you talk a little bit more about where you see some early wins for UVA? What are some unanswered questions that we're really well positioned to address here? And then what are some other spaces that you see as so well positioned to try to address in an early frame?
Well, I think it's a really exciting time, and I just want to echo the things that have already been said by my colleagues in terms of the importance of meeting families and individuals with autism where they are, building on their strengths, and that it really does take a team of experts, including community members, family members, professionals, and scientists to be able to meet that need. To me, when I think about unanswered questions in the field of autism, there are so many that it would probably take me a full day to go through the list of unanswered questions. But the most important question in my mind is the question that's brought to us by families and people with autism who say, what's going to make this better? What's going to improve my life and my outcomes? And I think that's what we need to be grounded in when we think about questions that we can answer as a group here at UVA. And that's, I think, what I heard from both of my colleagues here. And that, again, is going to take an interdisciplinary approach. We have the resources at UVA to be able to address multiple unanswered questions, from biology to dissemination into communities, making communities stronger and more supportive. We have the expertise in the room today from multiple different disciplines, and that's what it's going to take, I think, to move the field forward. So some early kind of factors of success that have worked in other autism centers and places that I've been involved with have been things like building infrastructure that facilitate that interdisciplinary work, so that we're not working in silos or our own labs, but talking to one another and getting our best ideas about how to improve outcomes from talking with families and people who are directly affected, from talking with professionals outside of our disciplines. And that cross-fertilization is what really drives the field forward in science and practice. So that infrastructure, I think, is going to be key. And Catherine, the slide that you showed, that kind of illustrates the core components of that infrastructure are, I think, the secret of success in building a very successful autism initiative. So one aspect of that, I think, is developing an autism research core of professionals who have very specialized expertise in being able to administer certain kinds of measures and tests, being able to connect with families and build a community of interested families and professionals who have an interest in participating in research. A second component would be developing a database that connects labs, researchers, community practitioners, and families. That will be helpful both for research, but also for pushing out information that we're learning about what's working and strategies that are helpful for people. And then expanding our capacity to provide services not only here at UVA, but in the community and across the Commonwealth. And so I think those three infrastructure components are going to be the key to success in this initiative for sure.
Excellent. Well, thanks for giving us that overview. And I'm very cognizant of the fact we have so much expertise here in the audience. So now I'd like to open it up for some additional questions that you might have for the panelists, or if there's some priority areas that you've identified that you think UVA should really be attending to, or that you want to partner with us on. We'd love to hear about that. Oh, great. Thank you. We do have a couple of mics. I have somebody up here on the front row, or you could just come on up here since you're so close, if that's all right.
I won't take up too much time. Actually, my name is Nicole Group. Is it on? No. Okay, I can talk loud enough. My name is Nicole Group. I'm the mother of a 7-year-old with autism, and he's in the county schools, which I am a strong advocate of. And I was just wondering, you mentioned all of the great partnerships we actually have via in our village. We actually have the Curry School in our village. We have quite a large village. But I didn't actually hear a lot about you guys reaching out to the county and the city school districts. I'm assuming you are, but as we do have some teachers in the rooms, they're probably thinking, well, what about now? I need help now. And I know that there are 2 special education advisory committees, one for the city and one for the county, and I'm actually on the county one, where we are trying to advocate things for the schools. And the schools are being very supportive, but I'm just wondering what your relationship looks like now with the school systems.
Yeah, great question. We have a strong relationship. We'll talk a little bit about the county. So Kevin Kirst, who's the special ed director, presented at our opening autism event. And you know, when we think about those comprehensive supports and going out in the community, it can't just be making connections with UVA and VI Institute on Autism, UVA and Albemarle County School. We need to make the connection between all these organizations to build up the capacity. So, you know, as far as training, we train our teachers and we place them in institutions like autism, but we also are all throughout the schools. And when we envision the center, particularly related to the schools, we're thinking about how we can work in collaboration with them. So we have deep, strong relationship with them. Not enough. That's the reality. And quite honestly, we need more folks to go into the field of special education. If you look at the state of Virginia, you can only imagine the amount of phone calls I get a week a week before school starts, even 3 weeks after school starts, where they're looking for special education teachers. And they're not looking for one special education teacher, they're looking for 70 special education teachers. So we have, we have a resource issue related to getting professionals out there. So you could have a couple of experts who want to help, but without folks that can actually implement it in the classroom, it's a problem. But we're absolutely dedicated to that.
Thank you, too, for that question. And very quickly, to say my beautiful boy Dan is 20 years in the Albemarle County school system. That was an incredible resource for him. The reason he is a gentle giant is the partnership between VIA and the school systems. We would not be successful without that partnership, period. We will not be successful with our plans to create this integrated infrastructure without strong partnerships with the schools. We've developed a very strong research project with rural schools. Albemarle County schools are rural schools too, and we need to find ways to get training to teachers, support for families, and actually come into the home, which is, we all know, is critical to be able to make this picture full.
Got one right here. Oh, please continue.
I was just going to follow up and kind of circle back to some initial themes that were brought up on the panel in terms of using telehealth and video conferencing technology to bring training to rural and remote regions, as well as local training. A project that I've been involved with at the University of Missouri leveraged this kind of technology to provide training to community-based physicians to be able to increase their capacity to provide best practice care for children with autism in their communities. And we've explored and begun piloting similar models for training teachers in schools, not only local schools, but schools very remote, to be able to increase capacity to provide evidence-based strategies in the classroom. So that's one model for providing training that could be very accessible.
Great, that's helpful. So let's hear if you could briefly introduce yourself and then your
Yes.
question.
Hello, I'm Robin Hoffman. I'm an RN. I actually was a telemedicine RN in 2008. They didn't have one anyway, so I program because I'm also an educator. The point I want to make is that I wrote a broadband proposal, actually, in 2009, to hook up the schools with telemedicine. And Tia Campbell of this, yes, so she has my proposal. But here's what I want to get at. It's already established in Kansas City, and that's where I got my information from. Kansas City, being rural, had a Dr. Doolittle. That's why nobody listens to me. But Dr. Gary Doolittle was the one who put it for every single service in Kansas City. And you guys know that in telemedicine. But anyway, I'm just wondering what's taking so long. Because broadband was established in the rural communities already. And so that's my question.
You bet. What's taking so long? We are 50 different states with 50 different healthcare processes with different standards in education, and so it's complicated to implement this. It's complicated, as I see a beautiful face I know that helped drive that broadband out to those rural communities. It's taken time, but we are now at a strategic inflection point, and I hope that that's what's being communicated, where what comes next is transformative. It's integrating all these elements of the evidence, the research, the support, the training of teachers, and reaching families that have heretofore been in isolation. And we are starting to reach. It's happening now.
Great, thank you. I think another question here.
I'm curious to know what you can tell us about why there is such a rapid increase in the frequency of autism. There are various studies, particularly those from the Institute of Medicine, have thoroughly discredited any theories about there being due to vaccination or being due to the use of thiomersal, for example, mercury-containing compounds in the origins of autism. The upward slope of that curve is not only frightening, but almost hard to believe that they don't represent simply underdiagnosis at earlier times. But I'd like to know what is the current state of opinion about the population.
Great. I
of
think,
this.
Micah, you're in a really good position to address that first.
Yes, that's an excellent question, and probably one of the bigger unanswered questions in autism at this point. One of the things that we know has been largely responsible for some of the curve and increase is our expanded definition of what autism is. So historically, autism diagnosis and diagnostic criteria were very narrowly defined. So probably only a small percentage of the population that we now know has autism spectrum disorder would have received a diagnosis based on those old criteria. And over time, the criteria have been adjusted and updated, and the most recent update to our diagnostic manual happened just a few years ago. But over time, the definition has expanded, so we're capturing more people that probably would have met criteria if we used these newer criteria back then. That doesn't explain the whole increase in the population. There are some factors that we haven't identified in terms of other causes. Part of that may also be increased awareness. We've done a great job in the autism community of educating the public about what autism is and helping people recognize early signs of autism. So more and more people are being identified than would have in the past, even with the same criteria. So I hope that answers your question in part, even though we don't have a full answer.
I would point out that when I was a fourth-year medical student in 1950, the psychiatrist actually broke into one of our sessions to say that he had a patient that we would never see again. And therefore, he had to show it to us because it was the only time in our career we would ever find such a patient. And he brought in a patient with autism. So I find it hard to believe that there isn't a real increase in addition to a diagnostic increase.
Yeah, I appreciate that sentiment, and I want to say something very important and get a shout out to the work that we are doing in neurosciences, because there's this phenomenon that's happening within our communities, this radical increase, maybe better testing, broader criteria, more awareness. But I agree with you, there is something going on, and I'm very proud to be associated with the work of Dr. Kapoor and the Brain Institute at the university. We are rewriting the textbooks. The recent discoveries in the relationship between the brain and the immune system that have been done here at UVA are transformative, and there's the guy that can say something about it right there.
Hi, my name is Jaddeep Kapoor, and I direct the Brain Institute. And our job is to broadly bring various parts of the university together around very important problems related to brain disorders. And autism is one of the first things that we've focused on as a disorder where we think so many different people are needed, and you just heard. But I also want to point out that some very important and interesting fundamental research into causes of autism is going on at the University of Virginia at the level of lab research, and Yoni Kipnis's lab has shown that immune molecules are greatly involved. So if you take this in social behavior of animals, and as you know, a part of autism spectrum disorder is deficits in socialization and social behavior. And they've found many roles that immune system can play in bringing about autism, but also gives us hope to treat some of these by modulating the immune system. It also gives us hope to recognize autism long before children start speaking, for example, at 6 months. Why 2 years? Imagine if we could tell a family that at 6 months and 1 year, based on the immune profile of the baby that's born to the family, that this child is at risk for developing autism. That's when we can begin to intervene, whether it is by education or pie in the sky modulating their immune system or other parts of the body that we can intervene on. So what Brain Institute is trying to do is to bring this very exciting fundamental research that's going on in the School of Medicine and in psychology, along with the Curry School of Education, and bring it statewide with telehealth. We have tremendous opportunity. I think David just used the word, we are at an inflection point. Those of us who've been around at UVA feel that this is a great moment of opportunity. So I'll stop there.
Thank you. Yes, we are thrilled to be very actively engaged in the Brain Institute and partner on hires that really illustrate our multidisciplinary commitment to this issue. It's not going to take one group of folks over in the School of Ed. It's going to take all of us working in collaboration with our state partners and educators across the state. So I think there are a few more questions that we will take.
Good morning. I just had a quick question. As an alumni of the Curry School and a special education teacher, I came here today curious as to what type of initiatives you might be looking into with alum, knowing that more than probably myself are an alum and our teachers. What can we do, and how are you going to continue to communicate to us to continue that professional development? And also with that, are you looking to develop types of programs outside of training? You know, we hear about executive functioning, we hear about, you know, ABA and whatnot, but are you looking at the Curry School at developing a specific program for persons with autism?
Well, that's a great setup for Bill, because he's very involved in developing these programming.
Before I was at the University of Virginia, I spent a decade at the University of Iowa, where we have a post-secondary program for individuals with intellectual disabilities and autism. And we've done some preliminary research to see what kind of impacts we can have with that type of a program in a residential university setting. And it can be pretty dramatic. In fact, lo and behold, people with autism actually getting the same thing out of going to college that everybody else does. They become more independent. When they graduate, they tend to make more money. They tend to have better jobs, and so on and so forth. So that's a really good point. One thing, there was the question related to what's the relationship with the county schools, and what's the relationship with the folks that you've graduated it from your program. And we really relish those types of challenges. If we're really going to make a difference, we've got to all work together, and we need to be pushed to say, hey, how about us? Because even if I had the answers, or we had the answers, which we don't have the personnel to push it out to the schools. We have to work together, absolutely have to work together. And we don't want this to be a pie-in-the-sky type of initiative. We want this on the grounds, making a difference, and be challenged by parents and professionals that are working with these individuals. And I really think that's the only way to make a difference. So thank you for that question.
Yeah, I think that's a great illustration of why we're here today to talk with you, because we really want to partner with our alumni that have gotten trained in Curry or the School of Medicine, or have a personal or professional connection to this area, because this isn't going to be something we here on grounds are going to be able to tackle. We really need partners, and so we want to hear from you and invite you to reach out to us with ideas or opportunities for collaboration and partnership. So we're really very excited about that. I think we'll take one final question, and then we'll wrap it up today.
I'm Dr. Daria Brzezinski, and I work with the adult population in autism in this community, which there is a plethora of, and they have many, many, many issues that you can address, like, you know, driver ed, teaching driver ed classes with your simulator and things of that nature. Every time I go to one of these events, the focus is always on children and school-age children. But there is a huge majority of individuals in this community in a 5-county area who have a tremendous amount of needs. And we have socials for them and things of that nature because there just aren't anything. In my experience in working with them, I'm a job coach, and I help them in independent living. And what I see is all the deficits that happen after they've graduated from high school and don't have the life skills that they need for anything, much less independent living and working in a job. The second thing I wanted to have you address is, in looking at this chart here and looking at the dates, if you would kindly look into the correspondence between the GMOs, the glyphosates, and the fluorine in our culture and in our environment related to those dates may have something to do with it as well. Thank you.
Thanks for that. I would actually like to call up Yuzha, if that's okay. Yuzha, who's right on the front row, one of our new hires. If you wouldn't mind stepping up and talking a little bit about some of the work that you're doing with the emerging adult population. This lifespan perspective is certainly one that we embrace and need to build out our team, and that's one reason we recruited Yuzha to join us at the university.
Yeah, it's a very interesting comment. In the past couple of years, I've been working at the University of Iowa, the post-secondary education program for young adult learners with autism and developmental disabilities. And we try a lot of innovative interventions with those learners. Like Bill said, a lot of people assume that young adult learners, at this stage, they are not capable of learning academic skills anymore. But whenever we tried and whenever we target those important skills, for example, decoding or reading fluency, vocabulary, and reading comprehension, we already achieved those success, and these students can make meaningful gains. So, what we continue to do is to focus on young adult learners and with autism, and to look at those functional, life skills. Those functional life skills defined 50 years ago, they are no longer applicable to these days. In order for these young adults to be able to live independently and meaningfully, we should address those, important skills like academic skills.
Great, thank you. I
Matt,
think David will address the second part, and then we'll sneak in a final question here.
Well, yeah, and I just want to say that near and dear to my heart, what we do with autism, this is a disability at this moment across the lifespan. I want Ethan just to say two words about our commitment in the community to adults with autism, because it's very real for all of us.
So I'm the executive director at the Virginia Institute of Autism, and thank you, folks. We're thrilled about the potential for collaboration, in part because the evidence base that we are committed to is always constantly changing. And one of the things we know about our adults with autism, particularly here in the Commonwealth, is there's not a large evidence base about what works for those folks. So we're striving, we're trying. We've got a very small program right now. But ultimately, one of the things I think that's most exciting about the potential of UVA and thinking, most immediately we've been talking about some of the immediate needs at the younger stages of the game, but what can we be doing at the later stages of the game? Because right now we have over 500,000 adolescents who are moving into the adult system nationwide in the next 6 to 10 years. In Virginia alone, we have over 7,000 adults waiting for waivers for critical services that they need to be more independent and to live a more quality life, better quality of life. So I'm thrilled that the university is taking on this project, but then I'm also thinking too, this is big. This is really big. Where's McIntyre? Where's Darden? Let's figure out how are we going to get these folks jobs? How are we going to advocate across the state for improving service systems that ultimately are going to lend folks, as they don't outgrow their autism, as they move into the adult world and they're still experiencing challenges, how are we going to start to solve some of those bigger issues and problems? So I'm thrilled that we've got that collaboration going.
Thank you, Ethan. And just on the second part of that question, because it is so important, and because of what the work is in the Brain Institute, and the notion of the relationship between the immune system, the blood-brain barrier, all it's going away. We are literally rewriting the textbook on this. And we will discover what those environmental factors are, what the genetic factors are, what the awareness factors are. That's part of this challenge.
Great. Our final question over here, and then we'll wrap up. So.
Okay. I have a question. Obviously, growing up with autism, my parents really focused, and it was focused on different strategies, and it was hit, miss. And then when I went into the autism field, the more I'm in it, the more I realize how many strategies and how many programs are a hit and miss. And with Common Core, and I teach students who are severely autistic. Some are verbal, some are nonverbal. And it doesn't really seem like there is a clear-cut programs or strategies out there. You mentioned having reading strategies that really help the kids, like I use Edmark or sometimes unique learning, but it doesn't really seem to focus on long-term progress. And I don't want to underestimate my students like people underestimated me. So what are they?
Well, I just so have them right here in my pocket. No, we don't know. We have a lot of research that we need to work on. I think one thing we know is that we've underestimated individuals with autism for way too long, and that they have a lot of strengths, and that we need to build off of those strengths, and we need to challenge them, reasonably challenge them to reach for their potential, just like everybody else. And so you should talk a little bit about the academic area, and certainly the social area and the vocational area. And one of the main things to think about is how do we harness their motivations and their interests, just like everybody else. So if you find you can latch on to an individual with autism, or any individual, some passion of theirs, and then build academic and social and other interactions around that, then boy, you really have something. And so I'm happy to have you in the field.
I would agree, and thank you so much for that comment. I think some of the work that we're doing now is trying to develop better tools for figuring out what interventions are going to work for which people. And I think it's not one size fits all. So the more that we can do in that area, developing better tools and technologies for figuring out how to target interventions and strategies for an individual so that we can make the most progress is going to be something we'll be focusing on with our research and practical work.
I feel like we could go on for a few more hours because there's such great questions and comments from the audience. But I've never said this before, but I know I'm between you and a football game. So I'm going to wrap up, but I'm going to leave you with this slide here, because as we make our way up to Scott Stadium, we'll be thinking about this, and we will continue to be thinking about this issue both very seriously here at UVA and really thinking creatively about ways to engage you as we move forward. So thank you so much for spending time with us here today. I wish you great luck, and please reach out to us as we develop a vision around this and want to engage you as partners. And thanks so much to our panelists here today and the organizers.
Yes, thank you very much, everybody. Catherine, this is for you. Thank you so much. And guys, before